Hey, this is 81 Workman Firearms. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to install the DPP titanium mounting plate for the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. So this is a cheaper option if you don't want to go get your slide milled, pay 125 bucks, pay 150 bucks. This is just going to go where the rear sight was. So this replaces the rear sight so you can mount an optic on top of your firearm. So now, without further ado, I'll show you everything that you're going to need to actually conduct this job. It's not terribly hard. Let's get to it. Okay, so some things you're gonna need: torque wrench, a brass punch, a mallet or a hammer, some blue Loctite, stay away from the red stuff for this installation, your mounting plates from DPP titanium, and then your optic of your choice, and then of course you're gonna need that firearm. And then if you don't have a sight pusher, you can always go old school, grab a towel to wrap around that slide, and then you're gonna need a vise, but preferred method is to have that sight pusher. All right, let's get to that installation. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do before you work on this firearm is you're always gonna wanna clear it. Remove that source ammunition, then lock the slide to the rear. From here, physically and visually inspect that chamber, inspect your magazine well. One last time, physically and visually inspect that chamber. All right, your firearm's clear. Now what we're gonna do is disassemble it. Lock that slide to the rear, rotate your takedown lever to the 90-degree position, and then you can ride that slide forward while pressing down on your slide stop. That slide will come right off. Disassemble your slide. Put the parts in a nice parts container. You can set your frame aside as well. And now we're gonna be working on the slide. Now, when you open up your box, this kit is gonna come with a few different things. It's gonna come with some Allen wrenches. It's gonna come with some sealing plates. Now, these sealing plates are only if you're mounting a Trijicon to your firearm. If you're not mounting a Trijicon optic to your firearm, then you can just set these aside. It's gonna be coming with a pair of set screws, and then screws for your optic, the mounting plate itself, and then your instruction manual, which you can always keep that handy. Now, once you've taken everything out, you're gonna set this stuff aside, and we're gonna start removing that rear sight. Okay, so now we have our slide and our vise. I'm using a Sight Pusher Pro to stabilize the firearm. I'm gonna punch out that rear sight. Now, if you don't have a sight pusher, I advise you to get one just so you don't mar up your firearm before you actually start working on it. But if you don't have that, you want to cut some costs, you can always take a towel, wrap your slide around it, put it in a vise, and then remove that rear sight that way. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1 16th inch Allen wrench, and I'm just going to start removing that rear set screw. Take that set screw, set it aside, put it in a nice parts container and a hat so you don't lose it. And then I'm going to start removing that rear sight. And then with most firearms, majority of all the firearms, when you're removing sights or installing sights, you're always going to install it with the muzzle facing away from you. It's going to install right to left. And then if you're going to be removing them, you're going to be removing it left to right. Make sure that muzzle is facing away from you. Take the rear sight, I'll set it aside. And then I'm just gonna clear off any of that grease inside there. You can take a washcloth, some Q-tips, and just get in there and make sure everything's nice and dried off. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start working on the installation of that mounting plate. Okay, so when mounting that optic plate, one thing to make sure of is when you remove that rear sight, you're gonna see this tiny little spring and this little spring cap kind of shoot up at you. It's not gonna shoot out of the firearm, but it kind of bounces up when you remove that rear sight. Now, this is the drop safety spring and the drop safety spring cap. You're gonna wanna make sure that you pay close attention to this so you don't lose it, or the little cap that actually detaches doesn't spring out, shoot somewhere, and then it's gonna be hard for you to find that, okay? So you're gonna keep that in the firearm, and then you're gonna take a flathead screwdriver or a nail filer if it's small enough, and you're gonna depress it. When you depress it, you're gonna wanna take that mounting plate, slide it on, and get it started. Once you slide it in and get it started, you're gonna wanna come down to eye level, check alignment, and make sure that that plate isn't sliding against your firearm slide. From there, once the alignment's good, you can take a rubber mallet, If you don't have a rubber mallet, you can take a hammer and put some E-tape, like duct tape, at the end of it so you don't mar up the mounting plate. And you're just going to gently tap it to get it started. And the purpose of this is to get enough of the mounting plate over that job safety spring cap so it doesn't shoot out. Okay, so that's good enough right there. Now from here, I'm gonna take my brass punch and I'll slowly start punching this one on. All right, so once you think you got it on there pretty straight, you wanna just check alignment with some calipers if you have them available. So I'm gonna do that right now real quick. All right, so once you're happy with the mounting of your mounting plate, you make sure that it's centered and it's all aligned and it's nice and tight in there. Now we're gonna go into the installation of the optic and some of the set screws when it comes to the mounting plate. Okay, so go ahead and get your set screws. The set screws are going to be like the wider and shorter screws that comes in the packaging. Get your torque wrench or your Allen keys, and then you're gonna take some blue Loctite, apply just a moderate amount, small amount, you don't want too much, to that set screw. And then we're gonna be setting this torque wrench to 18 pounds per inch. That set screw is gonna go in that widest hole in the center of that mounting plate. Wipe away any excess Loctite, and now we're gonna be actually mounting the optic. Okay, so now we have our optic. Now when it comes to the screws, technically you're supposed to use those screws that come in the packages. However, the screws that came in the packaging do not correctly fit the Holosun 507C. So we're gonna be using the Holosun 507C screws just because the length is the exact same as the length of the screws that came with the adapter plate, and these screws that came with the optic are going to seat a lot better when it comes to actually seating the optic and actually torquing it down, especially when you're actually using and you're running this firearm. The screws that came with the mounting plate just is not going to be seating this optic correctly, so it's going to actually loosen up that optic and actually wear away at that optic as well, especially the threads. All right, so I just applied a little bit of Loctite, and now I'm going to take my torque wrench and I'm going to be torquing it down to 13 pounds per inch. And especially when you're installing this optic, you don't want to torque down one screw first completely and then torque the other one, just because it messes up the harmonics of the optic itself. So torque one down halfway, torque the other one down halfway, kind of keep them same leveled so they're not off balance. All right, so now I'm going to put this slide back on the firearm, and then we'll do an overall view, see how it looks, see how it actually functions as well. Okay, so I'll grab that slide, drop my barrel in, my recoil spring in there, put my slide back on. All right, and that's the finished product right there. Honestly, for a mounting plate that goes within the dovetail, I'm always not really the biggest fan of these types of mounting plates. I get it, it's the budget way to go because you don't want to mill your slide. However, a lot of the times they don't always look the best, or they're way too high. However, I'll be honest, for the DPP titanium, is probably one of the better mounting plates or mounting systems, dovetail mounting systems that I've seen. And I'm very happy with the product, and I'm very happy with the material that it's made out of too. It doesn't mar up very easily, and if you need to trim it, it's easy to kind of shave down or trim to make it go on that dovetail a lot easier. I'm very happy with this product. Now, let's go on the range and shoot it, see how it actually performs.